Hello, everyone, and thanks for joining us again. I'm delighted today that we're joined by a very good friend of Talent Smart, Graham Smith. Graham is a strategy and implementation specialist who we've known and worked with for quite a few years on and off. Graham, how you doing?
I'm very well, Phil. It's been a long relationship between you and I. I can't remember when we got together, but it's been many years. So it's great to talk to you again. Really appreciate
Oh,
it.
I really appreciate you giving us some time, and it's I hope you're enjoying life out there in Portugal. It's always looks nice and sunny whenever I speak to you, so that's good.
It is another lovely sunny day. 300 days of sunshine in Portugal. We'll get to that when we come to some of the other questions. But yeah, it's one of the many reasons to consider Portugal. But yeah, it's great. It's a beautiful sunny day.
Brilliant stuff. So obviously you're strategy implementation specialist, as we know. I mean, those some people watching won't know that, but that's really what I want to tap into today, because there's a lot of startup trends. We know that a lot succeed and an awful lot fail. So I want to try and sort of help some people out there who may be thinking about tech startup or tech scale up or thinking about launching a new product. And maybe dip into your brain a little bit in the next sort of 20 minutes and see if we can, extract some stuff that people can utilize in their day to day. I suppose start. What are you seeing as the sort of main trends in startups? Where are you seeing most activity?
Yeah, no, let me just kind of contextualize that first point, which is around, startup and strategy, right? So there's statistics that come out all the time around, over 70% of strategy fails. And that's true for any strategy, whether it be in startup, scale up, or mature businesses. So one of the things here around, so your point around trends is making sure you're understanding what the gaps in the market are. So your strategy, why is 70% failing? It's because of that, like, understanding of the market and understanding exactly where you need to be. Now, strategy teaching goes back a long way. So if you go back to the 70s and the early 80s, there was a lot of strategy work done. So people like Porter wrote down some very nice frameworks about how to analyze strategy, in a very rigorous fashion. And then different academics came along. So people like Henry Mintzberg came along and said, actually, I think what we need to do is then learn from the environment. So he created something called the emergent strategy. And this was about actually taking feedback from the environment so you could learn from it as fast as possible. Now, this learning process is, in the startup trade, is called pivoting. So they call it pivot, because what you're doing is going out to the market and you're testing an idea. Now, going back to those strategy frameworks, but the way Porter puts it is go and do lots of research, go and do lots of fact finding, go and find your customers, and then launch your product, because that's going to make you more successful. And then along comes Mintzberg and says, actually, don't do that. Get some feedback as you go. Launch, pivot, launch, pivot, launch, pivot. Now, where we find ourselves in the startup market is a mixture between those two things. So what we find is people that have found something that they know is a gap because of their market niche. So they've already probably found the idea, and then they launch probably an early, something like an MVP. So a minimum viable product. So something very small and very easy to test. So what they do is they launch that and then see if it sticks. So you've got an idea and you launch it as fast as possible. Now, this is somewhat, the kind of the way that startups find their pivot and see if it's working. So when you launch your first product, you need to get fast feedback. And this is Mintzberg's point, is you need that fast feedback loop and go, well, is it working? Isn't it working? And this is some of the areas I'm sure we're going to come on to around what is it in those first few weeks, first few months of your product that you need to be really careful about. It's that kind of like, I'm going to put an idea out there and I'm going to test it with my market, because I know there's probably a problem I need to solve, but I need to see if it's the same problem that others are seeing. So it's that kind of iteration that's really important. And that, the startup world, that pivoting is absolutely key. And very much as we go through the rest of the cycle, startup, scale up, and mature markets, there is that idea about pivoting is continuous.
And I suppose that leads on to then something that we were talking before we started recording. You mentioned about ecosystems. So I guess if you're in one of those ecosystems, that's a help as well, because you're seeing what others are doing maybe and how they're pivoting, or perhaps you just get energy.
Well, there's three different things there, I think, around the ecosystem gives you lots of feedback loops in terms of you can see what others are doing. So there's lots of hubs. You can go to these startup hubs, obviously, that actually have a concentration of ideas. There's obviously lots of areas where you can go for startup feedback. So you can actually go to events. There's one in Lisbon next month called I don't need to think about what it's called now. There's one in Lisbon next month called the Web Summit. So the Web Summit is in Lisbon every year, and they bring together thousands and thousands of startups. And what struck me, I've been there pretty much every year now since I've been here. One thing that struck me around this ecosystem is that it's huge. It's absolutely huge. You kind of, as a startup, you often one or two people with an idea, and you're going out testing your product, and you're talking to others, and you might see a couple of other people talking about the idea, and you're like, well, our idea's definitely better. And then you go somewhere like Web Summit, and you're walking through Web Summit, and there are thousands and thousands and thousands of startups, and they're all grouped by, there's some in health, and there's some in well-being, and there's some in pharma, and there's some in, there's different industries. And there's whole areas dedicated to these industry sectors. So one of the key things here is find the ecosystem where you are and go and engage with it, because you'll get feedback as to what other people are doing, and that helps you pivot your product faster to make sure you've got a good what they call another part of strategy is called blue ocean. You're looking for something that somebody else isn't doing, but you're going to solve a good solid problem for your target market. So you get feedback from others, and the startup community are very happy to share because they want their product to succeed. So they will happily tell you what they're doing because they want to be first to their market. And actually, if you get that feedback, you can then adjust your product so you're not competing at the outset. The second thing you get from these ecosystems is you get a feeling about the skill set. So your skill set is one of those things as a startup, as a founder. Your skill set is your industry. So you probably know your industry inside out. You found this product, you've found your market, and now you figure out how to launch it. So your skill set may be like your particular industry, but it might not be product development. So now you're looking for some product development skills, whether that be digital skills or whether that be a physical product. You're trying to make a device. In a lot of industries, that's becoming, with 3D printing, making devices is becoming really, really fast. So you're looking for a partnership now. You're looking for another founder, or you're looking for a partnership so you can make your product. So in these ecosystems, you find these other partners, and you might find a 3D printer to make your physical product so you can launch it. You might find a digital partner so you can make your digital product and launch it. These ecosystems are great for finding skills. And because they're startups, they're often willing to trade on skill base. So they say, actually, I have this skill, but I don't have this skill. So if we get together, I can have your skill in my team, and I can give you your skill in your team. So it's a really good exchange of ideas. It's a really good exchange of skills. And also, as I was saying earlier, it's a really good idea. It's a really good exchange of actually testing your idea without actually going out and spending lots of money, because you just turn up to the conference and you go, actually, that looks very similar to my product, and go and talk to them. And they're, again, they're very happy to share where they are, where they're going, how they're doing, and you can tell them a little bit about what you were doing, so you make sure you've got enough, market segment for you to be successful. So definitely ecosystem. Find your local ecosystem. Obviously in the UK, there's a big central. You look at the tech roundabout around Old Street. There's often startup camps around that kind of area, around Old Street and the kind of Brick Lane area. There's often startup camps. In Lisbon, a massive congregation of startups. The same in if you go to San Fran, huge startup camps that you can just drop into, and conferences that you can get feedback from. It's a big community, incredibly engaged. So just reach out and you'll find help. It's definitely a recommendation. Get out there and talk to lots of people early on.
Perfect. No, that's great. And I love the idea of this sort of skills bartering, and even back to we're going teching one day and then we're going back to another way. We're doing a bit of exchange.
Completely.
What are the sort of key mistakes that you've seen? And you don't have to name names. Startup world. What are the key mistakes to avoid in your early?
I will name names. I'll start that against my dog was barking. So I will name names because early on in my career, I was actually starting my own startup. So I had 3 startups all at once. I was doing them side by side again, trying to find my market fit. So I actually launched 3 in parallel. There was it was an early niche, you know, it was early on in the market. There was nothing there, but I didn't go out and talk to my target, market and find out actually is this a problem that you need to solve and how is the customer going to engage with this product. So that was the first one. Is I was probably early 20s. You know, this is a while ago. Obviously not that long ago, but you know, a little while ago. Early 20s. So a little bit naive, you know, thinking actually if I just launch this, if I build it, they'll come. You know, that was my idea. So built these 3 businesses side by side, and obviously, you know, .net, .com era, a big launch, early millennia, late 90s, early millennia. So I was in that market trying to make these businesses work. So I didn't reach out to my market to find out, you know, is this a product that you're interested in? Number 2 is going back to my point. You know, not only didn't engage with my market, I didn't find the skills. So I did this all myself. So this was, you know, running 3 businesses, and I was actually working full time as well. So I was doing this in the evening. So I was burning the candle at both ends. And alongside that, actually, I was launching these products in Spanish. So I was learning a new language, launching in a completely new market, while trying to maintain a full-time role. And this is, you know, this is the life of a startup. It's not unusual for founders to do that. But didn't engage with my market, didn't reach out to my target market. Those are definitely failures on that front. And also, you know, funding was really difficult in the late 90s. So finding funding was really, you know, I didn't understand how it worked. I didn't understand how to get funding, and certainly at that time you couldn't. Well, there wasn't a good community of people you could reach out to and go, right, how do I get funding? How do I get more? You know, how can I scale my team? And again, that, you know, I didn't think about the skill bartering at that point, because I probably could have skill bartered for some of my skills for somebody else's skills. So I think, you know, what the things to avoid are, don't assume that your product is right. Definitely reach out early. You know, engage with your customers. Engage. You know, actually talk to them. Nothing can beat a good conversation. Reach out in terms of skills. You know, find people that can do the things that you can't do, rather than trying to learn everything, because that just burns your time, and that time is precious when you're a founder. And the third thing is obviously, don't try and burn the candle at both ends, because it does, you know, it does get too much at some point. And when I got to that point where actually I was finding my product wasn't landing, and it wasn't as easy as I thought, and this was 2 years in, I was like, actually, you know, I don't know how to scale this, and I couldn't find the money. You know, there were lots of things that were like, actually, I'll just continue with my day job, because this startup thing's, you know, it's in the too hard box. So I kind of parked it, and that was a mistake. That was actually, you know, looking back, that decision to park it was a mistake. So as I say, this was late 90s, early millennium. Had I kept that going for another 2 years, even just ticking over, and just kept the presence there, then almost certainly I could have exited at a much larger you know, premium than I did. So that was a mistake. Is not just to, you know, just say, actually, I don't need to invest so much time into it. I can just leave it where it is and come back to it, because actually I had more time than I thought for that market to mature. The market I was actually trying to enter didn't mature until like middle of 2005, 2007. So I actually had another 5 years just for my product to sit on the shelf and wait for the market to develop, and then I could have actually sold it at a premium. So I think those are the things I'd say, is be tenacious, I guess, to summarize. Reach out, and don't be afraid to ask for help in terms of capital or skills.
It's amazing that there's quite a few stories of startups who were just too early to market, which seems a real like it's hard to get my head around that. Because but you're right, the market just doesn't mature sometimes. You've got a good
Yep.
product, you just sometimes have to sit tight and wait
Yep.
for the market to catch up. So yeah, that's a very, very good point, which I
Absolutely. I mean, case in point, your doll behind you, Super Mario, they had a product to market and actually it wasn't sticking. So then they innovated and created, Pokemon Go and the whole kind of innovation around engagement for the customer, and it become a completely new market segment, completely new product segment that they didn't have before. So they pivoted. A really mature company had pivoted into a startup, arena, and they become, obviously very successful on the back of that. Although they need to innovate again now. They've left that a little bit too long now.
yeah. Um, when you're because you're brought in a lot of companies, I know startups and very mature companies that want to launch new products. You're brought in, and for want of a better expression, for my purposes, to understand what you do, you lift the hood and you have a look and lift the drains and pull things apart and have a look to assess what's going to drive success or otherwise.
Hmm.
First thing you go for, where's your bullseye? You go straight for, well, I'm going to look to this to see if this is, my assessment is going to be whether this is going to be a success or a failure.
Culture.
Okay, that was quick.
Yeah, I was actually talking. It's funny. So again, strategy teaching is great. It's very structured, very methodical, very much. You do this and you do that, and it's A, B, C, D, E, F, and that's the process you follow. But when you've got any situation where it's an existing company or even the founder, startup, scale up, whatever cycle that is, if you're not setting the right culture from the outset in terms of making decisions and failing fast, not being, setting up that kind of, I guess, environment where being wrong is okay. If it's okay to be wrong, just learn and move on. Don't kind of dwell on your failures will kill you, but your successes, build on those. So the culture is very much, culture eats strategy for breakfast is one of the first things you learn as a strategist. Is without that culture, without that innovative, the way of thinking, the way of approaching, your ways of working, everything has to evolve around how you put the business together at the outset. And that culture, if you look at the way companies are thinking now, so very much like, okay, well, do we have a remote first culture? That's an important question. Do we have an in-office culture? Do we want people to come around physically and discuss products? Do we want a mixture of both? Do we want people in the office occasionally and people offline occasionally? Do we want to meet in Barbados for a meetup? Do we want to go to, so those are cultural questions around how you create the company ethos, how you create and I call it the moral compass. What are our brand values? What do we stand for? How are we going to be successful? What will we do? And really importantly, what don't we do? What won't we do? What we never do? We will never do this. We won't do that. We won't, make choices to go into this particular part of the industry. So those choices around what we're not going to do and what we are going to do, those are equally a part of, not only a part of strategy, but also part of your cultural values about, right, actually, we're going to treat our customer as the most important part of our business. Whatever happens, we'll do the customer right. So if we have a product fail, we'll replace it. If we have a product go missing, we'll send them a new one. So those are kind of cultural parts of your strategy about how you approach your overall company ethics and the ways of working in your organization. And these are things that they're hard to continue, because once you've got that cultural ways of working, it's then when you bring new people in, it's like, well, are they going to have the same way of working as us? We want to maintain this culture. So as you grow through those stages of startup, scale up, and mature businesses, maintaining your culture becomes really important, because that's important for your strategy execution. And I think that time and time again, I've seen where organizations actually are maturing and they're losing their culture, and actually they want to bring it back. So they're like, they ask me in and say, well, we want to bring our culture back because we're losing our time to market, or we're losing our ability to innovate, or we're losing our ability to pivot, and we want to understand why. So, to bring them in for that reason, as well as understanding their strategy so that we can execute more successfully.
Now that's brilliant, because we see that from TalentSmart point of view, that companies more and more are understanding that soft skills, as we call them, of cultural fit, is vitally important. So you could have somebody with brilliant skills technically, but if they're not right for the environment, they'll cause nothing but havoc.
Exactly.
Bad
It's
be costly.
seen that many times. It's definitely one to watch, and cultural fit. It's a really hard one to interview for. But once you've got your moral compass for your company and you know how you make decisions, you can ask people and just say, look, we've got a product fail. What would you do? What's your action? As part of our team, what would your action be? Or if you've got a product go missing, talk me through your thought process, and then you can just understand how they're thinking. It's not right or it's not wrong. It's just, is it right for your company? Is it right for your culture? It's not, you're not trying to mold everyone to think the same way, but you've got a certain cultural identity that you want to maintain.
No, it's brilliant. I love that. In the new AI world, we'll call it, obviously the products are coming out faster, and ChatGPT is, the scaremongers out there saying it's taking over the world and whatnot. But what's your kind of thoughts on the products that will succeed in the new AI world? And you may have seen a couple already, I'm sure, but what's your thoughts on the kind of products that will succeed in the new AI world?
Yeah, I'll take you back a bit, because so I've been in AI for 20 years now. So I've been in AI since like early 23 years actually, looking at where we are now. So I was in the early stages of the AI kind of standard setting back, early millennia. And one of the things that has made AI really pervasive now, as it's taken 23 years to get there, is the fact it's been made a product now. So it's a product that you can engage with. It's no longer a technical, you don't have to code, right? You just engage with it. It's a website. You can ask it questions and it comes back with an answer. Now, those engagement points are becoming very rapidly ingrained in products. So products today are launching co-pilots every day. So a co-pilot would be something that's embedded in your software, and as you're typing, it actually starts filling out the rest for you. It's not type ahead. They'll actually say, right, I think you're writing a Python script to understand customer sentiment. Let me give you the script that you're trying to write. Actually tell you and say, right, this is the script that you're trying to write to understand customer segment in Python. And it will tell you that in seconds. And you go, actually, that would have taken me about 2 days to come up with that. So I'll take that and I'll modify it and I'll iterate on it. So all those co-pilots are becoming very much embedded in products now. And I think things like ChatGPT and all of these co-pilots, they'll become commoditized. So they'll just become part of our ways of working, and it'll be like type ahead, where you don't even know it's there anymore. It just becomes like, actually, I'm going to ask my AI co-pilot to write me a Python script because it does. That's what it does. So that's going to become commoditized, and it's going to be, the very low margin business where you're charging a couple of cents on each prompt. They call them prompts when you ask the AI engine for a feedback, and the AI says, this is your answer. That's a prompt response, and those will be, 0.0000 pennies. But there's enough of them that actually you get a volume, and then that provides a little bit of income. But where we start moving up what they call the pyramid, and the pyramid is a service pyramid. So at the bottom you've got the commodities, and then as you move up, you've got the kind of embedded services. So if you think about where we are today, things like financial services are close to the top of the pyramid because they're innovating on products that are down the bottom of the pyramid. So they're innovating on how you create capital and how that capital creates a financial product, and then how you secure that financial product in the markets, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. That's quite a complex system. So it's quite at the top of what they call the services pyramid. So the AI kind of evolution will start walking up that services pyramid towards the top. So it will start having, it will start getting into a similar arena where it's creating new product. It will create new financial instruments. It will create new products to market. And we're seeing this a bit now where AI is becoming a product in its own right, but it'll actually begin to start saying, actually, this product, it will start that pivoting process and say, actually, this product isn't working. I'm going to pivot into this market and start thinking about this one. There's been some great experiments on a couple of the social media channels where people have given the AI engine a budget and said, I'm going to give you $10, create me a business that makes $1 million. And it's given it, for over the course of, I think the ones I've seen have been like a month. And every day they they feed back to the engine, you told me this yesterday, now you need to make a new, you need to tell me what you're going to do today. And it's like letting the AI make all the decisions. It's like AI, tell me what you're going to do today. It's making the what they call the AI CEO.
Wow.
And as you follow these through their evolution, they've done these experiments over the course of days. They've made money in a very short space of time. They've made a product, they've got it to market, and the AI has written the business plan, it's written the website, it's launched a product, and in some cases created the physical good by creating an order for that particular good to a wholesaler, and then bringing it into the website as a product. And the AI has done all of this, and the human co-pilot in this case, all it's doing is guiding the AI around, well, this is the feedback you've got today, how are you going to make a decision tomorrow? And these businesses say that they've actually made money in a very short space of time, like 10 days, they've become profitable. And you're like,
wow,
that's the future, is that AI is going to become, it's not going to be this side thing where you're going, actually, AI, tell me what to do. It's going to become embedded in your product, where you launch a product and you go, right, actually, AI, make sure this product is, 50% profitable, and don't make sure make sure you don't overstep any boundaries in our don't order from these locations, don't so give it some cultural norms. So all of those cultural things I mentioned earlier, that will be part of your AI engine. So you can put in your AI engine will be your cultural norms, your financial model, your business model, and actual product, and go, AI, can you do the rest for me? And all you're doing is guiding it. So AI become very much embedded in products as well as the product. So it becomes this, very much a pyramid of commodity, services, and then products at the top.
Wow, the AI CEO. That's fantastic. I'll be bandying that phrase around for the next week.
Not in the C-suite, not in the.
No, I don't want to fight the CEO now. Yeah, that would be a bit of a fight. Your job is on the line.
Yeah.
I suppose to summarize then, and thank you so much again for giving us so much of your time today. What would you say is and you've already given loads of brilliant advice and brilliant tips. What would you say the best tip for a scale up? If you're going to, there's loads of companies out there I'm hearing who want to embrace AI and do all these other things, and they want to scale up. What's your sort of number one tip as their video strategy advisor here now as to they want to, what would you say?
Yeah, scale ups again. What you're doing here is saying, I've got a product that's working and I want to reach a new market and I want to then launch it in a different geography, or you're trying to get more customer base, so you're basically getting through that next stage of revenue, and you're trying to iterate your product. So the key thing again is make sure you go back to basics. Go back to basics and reach out to your community, understand how your customer is using your product, understand if this new product would actually be attractive to them. And again, that customer focus is really key in all markets. What we see is that customer centricity is such an important point that it gets lost sometimes, where organizations are so focused on operational activities they actually forget that the customer is buying the product and actually creating the end revenue. So always come back to your customer journey, always come back to your customer engagement, understand the customer feedback. There's lots of ways you can look at customer feedback through, again, AI, looking at sentiment or looking at trends or looking at segments, or, understanding a bit more about, is this actually going to be successful? And what are the things I need to look out for? So you can do a lot of that through data, but again, really important to actually have physical conversations, because there's the data is one thing, but then actually the actualities are always slightly different. So reach out early, understand how you're going to scale, understand if it's realistic, start small on that scale up, and then obviously ramp from there. I think the other thing would be with all startups and scale ups and mature businesses, things become very organic very quickly. So if you're trying to do something that is repeatable and you want it high quality, because high quality drives trust in your customer. So your customer values that quality side, but that means you've got to have high quality, you've got to have it really repeatable. So this is where things like automation come into play, and you can automate things without losing that personal touch. So you can automate parts of your customer journey, but still keep your customer engaged in your brand and your product or your particular offering, while still kind of maintaining that personal touch. The way I explain this, and it might not be a very elegant analogy, but I used this analogy at some point, was, well, what kind of customer experience do you want? Do you want the Harrods experience, or do you want the Tesco experience? And neither are wrong. It's just a different way of approaching your customer experience. And it doesn't mean you've got a one size fits all either. In some parts of your customer journey, you might want a self-service. So you might want the Tesco approach, where you walk up to the till and you go beep, beep, beep. That's what you might want in some of your customer journey. Into other parts of your customer journey, you might want the Harrods approach, where you reach out to them and you engage with them and say, well, how can I help? And why isn't this product, is this product not working for you? How can we make it better? So you can have a blended approach. And in scale ups, it's understanding which part of the journeys you can make, beep, 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 and which part of the journeys are high value, and therefore, therefore high engagement and worth that kind of extra mile to engage your customer. So definitely customer engagement, customer journey, understanding your market, absolutely key.
Brilliant. Graham, it's been absolutely fantastic spending some time with you. Thank you for giving us some time again. If people want to seek you out, I guess LinkedIn, best place to find you?
LinkedIn, I've got a middle name, which Graham William Smith, so you'll find me that way, or Graham Smith, independent strategy advisor. Also, you'll be able to find me. Based in Lisbon, beautiful, beautiful country. If you're ever in Lisbon, please drop me a PM. Happy to host you and show you around the vineyards. Oh, did I say vineyards? Show you around the startup scene. That's what I meant. Startup scene, and maybe have a glass of wine.
I'm in. Sign me up. Brilliant stuff. Graham, thank you so much. And we look forward to releasing this, and hopefully people seek you out, and I'm sure we'll talk again soon.
Excellent. It's been a pleasure, Phil.
Bye.
Cheers.